I'd like to share a story with you today about a 13-year-old child born and raised in Doncaster. This child was facing physical and verbal harassment at school and on the streets, and as a result was outcast from many of the activities their peers were doing, including most of the lessons in their school. This child began to self-harm, and nobody knew because they didn't think that anybody cared. Their parents tried everything to help them and stop the madness their child was facing, but even after several suicide attempts, services and schools barely intervened. Professionals turned a blind eye, and mental health services passed this young person from pillar to post. This young person free fell through the safety net and was out of the education system for 3 years. They were eventually admitted to an inpatients ward for ill mental health, where they spent their 15th birthday, and upon leaving the ward, they went to a pupil referral unit, where they left school with only one GCSE. Today, this young person is 23 years old. They've just completed a degree and a master's degree at the University of Derby, and they've even managed to bag themselves a TEDx talk. In case you'd not already guessed it, that young person was me. My name's Tylae. I'm 23, and I'm passionate about social change and the development of communities. So how did I get here today? Well, I have 2 words: youth work. When I found youth work, I didn't know how much it would change my life. It turned me into the person I am today. It helped me understand my own way of life and other people's, and other walks of life. It gave me opportunities, life skills, and it helped me decide the path that I wanted to be on, whether I wanted the path that I'm on today or the path that I nearly fell onto, which was a life of drugs and crime. I believe that if I didn't have youth work, then I wouldn't be stood here with you today. In fact, I don't think I'd be here at all. And it sickens me to tell you that for well over a decade now, those who have had the power to have slashed youth work funding, have stamped out new opportunities for young people, and are continuously demonising them. But regardless of what they've done to youth work, I've come today to tell you one thing: youth work works. I and millions of others are living proof of that. So where did all our youth services go? Today, our young people need youth work more than ever. Between 2010 to 2016, an estimated £387 million was axed from youth services. As a result, over 920 youth clubs closed, with almost 5,500 youth workers losing their jobs. By 2021, it was clear that 73% of youth services had been axed, with annual spending dropping by around £1 billion. Young people today are dealing with issues different to the ones that we used to face, from internet trolls to cybercrime to cyberbullying and body shaming on social media. And let's not forget that they've just had to bounce back from a pandemic. And I'm sure we've all heard stories of the mental health crisis currently affecting our youth and the seemingly endless waiting time and the seemingly endless waiting lists on the NHS. Now we're just scratching the surface. Now, I could stand here and go off about how young people are lazy and arrogant, and about how they make these problems themselves, and they don't make it any better. And I can call them hoodlums, we can treat them like thugs and gangsters, and we can give in to the moral panics that the press present us with. All that does is make the situation worse. It underfunds their services, and in turn creates more issues. So we need to be there for our young people. We need to stop demonising them, and we need to understand them. But in order for us to understand them, we need to reflect. So today, I'd like us to do a little reflection on what we went through when we were young people, and have a think about how our youth service helped us with the issues we faced. So I've chosen 3 issues for us to focus on: gangs and violence, teenage pregnancy, and something as simple as having somewhere to go. First, gangs and violence. We have detached youth workers roaming the streets and youth support activity buses on the parks. Youth workers worked with local organisations to give young people a route away from crime. Next, teenage pregnancy. Youth clubs and community hubs offered young people free weekly sexual health drop-ins where they could get access to STI tests, as well as condoms, and free education on all things sex and relationships. And what about when we were bored and we needed somewhere to go? Well, we had youth clubs, hundreds of them in fact, in every town and city up and down the UK. These were spaces where young people could go to be themselves, to socialise, to play a game of pool, maybe do some arts and crafts. But it went deeper than this. Our youth service approached education in a different way to school, allowing young people to hone in on their talents and develop crucial life skills. Now back to the youth of today. What do they have and where can they go? Well, their youth clubs have closed and their youth workers are no longer on the streets anymore. The support that we had isn't there anymore for today's young people. Lifelong youth services are being replaced with 2-week programs such as the National Citizen Service. Our youth services are at breaking point. Now, I could stand here and tell you about how we need to return the funding that we lost to youth work, and we need to get those precious jobs that we've lost back. However, if I did that, I'd be stood here with you all day, and I've only got a couple of minutes left. So I've selected 3 things that I think we can all do in this room and at home to be a part of the solution and create some change. So those 3 things are that we need to reflect and give respect, we need to empower, and we need to take youth work seriously. So let's unpick them a little bit. First, reflect and give respect. What does that mean? Well, it starts with treating young people as human beings, seeing them as peers, not numbers. Enough of the dirty looks when you see young people act out of line, or when you see them in groups on the street. Let's remember our experiences when we were young, and let's remember how we wish we were treated, and let's treat our young people that way. So what can you do to reflect and give respect? Well, you could be a part of the sector. You could be a youth worker, volunteer, be a role model for young people. Or we could simply just be there for young people. Let's listen to them and collaborate with them, talk to them, understand their experiences and share ours. Let's treat them like humans. Next, we need to empower. When we empower our young people, we can work with them to create changes that we all want to see in society. I recall once working with a group of young people, closing in on their teenage years. Now, I thought this group of young people were at risk because they didn't really have any idea on the issues that affected them, nor their surrounding world. That wasn't until they found youth work. We collaborated, discussed, debated, spoke, and we just listened to each other. Racism, Islamophobia, knife crime, drugs, poverty. These were the issues that affected these young people. And they were pretty mad by it. So they made some placards and we took them to the council. And in turn, the council invited them to speak in front of the entire chamber. A couple of years later, I came across one of these young people. They told me that since then, they championed their past. They were going to college and they just started a podcast on anti-racism. This is just one story and one example of how youth work can empower young people. So let's share our stories. Let's empower each other, but also empower the youth service. Which leads me on to my final point. We need to take youth work seriously. You'll see us walk into work in a tracksuit or jeans and a top. You'll see us playing a game of pool, sat, chilled out, listening to music, or maybe doing some arts and crafts. But believe me when I say that these activities save and change lives. That game of pool, we're discussing anti-racism. That video game, well, that young person recently came out as a lesbian, and sadly, she's feeling outcast by her family. She needs that space right now. And you see us sat, chilled out, listening to music, while we're discussing consent and abuse. So let's take youth work seriously. We can write to our MPs and we can write to our councillors and we can get involved and ensure that youth work gets put back on the map. I'm in Doncaster, which just got city status. So let's go into this exciting new era for Donny by leading the changes needed, by prioritising children and young people and showing them that not only we care, but giving them their spaces back. I and millions of others are alive today because of youth work. Youth work works. Thank you.